So the first question I had, and I thought I'd come back and answer them, okay? Because I didn't want anyone to feel like they missed out. So if you're joining me again, if you're back, if you were here earlier at 2:30 and I said goodbye, welcome again. And to anyone else joining you, welcome. So it's not for long, so I'm just answering some questions that were sent to me. So the first question I had was, and I've read it from my laptop, can you talk about how to protect your IP? I've always wondered, how do writers make content, but also still give enough to publishers to read without losing the rights, or the publishers just stealing what you've given them as a base? Also, do you do things like patent a story or plot, copyright drafts before giving out samples for publishers or even Kickstarters? So that was from DWK 1987 _. Right. So first things first, patents is for inventions, basically. So if you've invented anything, you'll want a patent for it. So you're talking about intellectual property, protecting our rights as writers. So in terms of copyright protection. And many moons ago, I used to work for the BBC. So even though I'm trained as a criminal solicitor, criminal lawyer, I did do a stint in copyright when I was working at the BBC. And so in the UK, there are different rules in the UK. Copyright law is different in the UK in comparison to the States. When I talk about copyright law, I'm talking about the UK, England and Wales. So in the UK, you don't have to formally register copyright of your work. Your copyright starts the minute you create it. So in the States, you can formally register your work, which also ties in with the whole Anthropic AI saga that's been going on. So in the UK, the minute you write something, the copyright is with you. You don't have to register it anywhere. And your copyright remains with you for, I think it's 70 years. That's how long your copyright. In terms of publishers, it's a matter of trust. That's what you're doing. You're trusting that if you send your work out to agents, in terms of like you send a submission out, or when your agent then sends your submissions out to different publishers, you're trusting them that they will read it, make a decision whether or not to take it on or to reject it. And if they take it, happy days. If they reject it, very sad. But you're trusting them that they then won't go and talk to author G and say, author G, I've got an idea for a book. I think you should write it. That's what you're basically doing. And if it turns out that author G did then suddenly release a piece of work that is very, very similar to you, then obviously you could take them to court for a breach of copyright. So that's basically what you're doing. So that's my very short version of that question, is that you're trusting your agent and you're trusting your publisher not to breach your copyright. I don't know of anyone personally an author who's given an idea to their agent or to a publisher. I don't know anyone who's done that and then been rejected and then discovered that the idea they had has then turned up in a book that's become a bestseller. I don't know if that's happened personally to anyone. I have heard of it happen, of it being allegedly happening to a couple of writers, but I don't know of anyone that's happened to personally. But as I said, copyright in the UK, you're trusting your agent and you're trusting the publisher not to steal your ideas. That's not to say I'm not careful with my new ideas, because I always say there's only 7 original plots, right? And you can't copyright an idea. That's the thing as well. So you could copyright the body of work. The body of work would have copyright protection. But the idea, say like I had an idea to, I don't know, do Thomas the Tank Engine meets Die Hard. Random as anything, but stick with me. So like I had that idea, I'm going to write a new thriller, Thomas the Tank Engine meets Die Hard. If someone in the group, someone listening takes that idea, there's nothing I can do about it because it's just an idea. If I wrote the book, gave it to my agent or gave it to a publisher and they rejected it, but then 6 months later, someone writes the exact same book, then I could say, yeah, you've breached my copyright, you've stolen my book, but not the idea. What else did this question ask? The question asked, yeah, so it was asking, do you do things like patent a story or a plot? And I explain patents are for inventions. Can't copyright the idea, but your story, your book, your whatever will have copyright protection. And they asked, do you copyright drafts before giving out samples for publishers or even Kickstarters? Again, in the UK, no, because as soon as the body of work exists, you have copyright protection. And obviously in the States, it's different. You can all formally register copyright. So that was the question I had, and that's the question that I wanted to answer. Anyone else here wants to ask me a question, feel free. I seem to be doing 2 Substack lives today. Because it's Christmas. So feel free if you want to ask me any questions. And then I had this question, which I've now lost. Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, here it is. They said, what's one piece of advice you'd wish someone had given you before publishing your first book? And I was thinking about this, which is why part of the reason why I thought, let me come back, because in my earlier Substack live, I was talking about submitting to agents and, publishing deals and writing your first draft. That's what I was talking about in my earlier Substack, which I then had to remove because the audio was all messed up in the recording. But yeah, they asked, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you before publishing your first book? I wish I knew about pre-orders. It sounds very basic and it probably doesn't make much sense, but I wish someone had explained to me, because no one did. I didn't understand how important pre-orders were to the success of your book. I'm not talking about when I was self-publishing, I mean when I was traditionally published. In my naivety, and it does annoy me sometimes when I think of myself as being naive, because I always say, my other job as a lawyer, I know exactly what I'm doing as a criminal lawyer. I know exactly what I'm doing when I stand up in court and I represent someone, or I cross-examine someone, or I'm doing a closing speech. So it still irks me today that I didn't fully understand how important pre-orders were. I didn't understand until the Jigsaw, I could never get the dates right. My debut crime fiction book, The Jigsaw Man, came out, I think it was the 6th of February. It was the end of no, it wasn't end of January, that was my birthday. So I think 6th of February 2021, The Jigsaw Man debut came out. Bearing in mind it came out during lockdown, so I had to deal with all of that as well. But I don't think I understood how important pre-orders were until maybe like a month before. About a month before it was released. And so I wish someone had told me that you need to generate as many pre-orders as you possibly can before your book is released, because the pre-orders are a very good indicator of how well your book is going to do in that first week of sales, because all your pre-orders count towards that first week of sales. So the more pre-orders you get, then the more booksellers realize, oh my God, this book is in demand. We are going to have to order more. The more pre-orders you get is important for your publishers, because it then affects, okay, there's a lot of interest being generated in this book. There are a lot of pre-orders coming in for this book. We need to maybe do more in terms of marketing. We need to do more in terms of publicity, because they are 2 different things. Sometimes I think it's a shock when you realize publicity and marketing are not the same thing. But the more, the pre-orders means interest. Interest means it sells. And then you can build on those first week sales. Hopefully that then follows through into your second week sales. So when you see authors out there saying, please pre-order my book, please pre-order my book, please pre-order my book, I haven't got it with me because I'm downstairs. My next book, I'm going to do it now. So my new book, The Shadow Carver, which is the 4th book in the Detective Inspector Angelica Henley series, is out on the 12th of February. Please, 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 please pre-order my book. It's available in hardback, ebook, and audiobook. The more pre-orders I get, shows my publishers, people still want more Inspector Henley. They still want more books from Nadine Matheson. So, yeah, I wish I knew in the beginning how important pre-orders were. So when you see these authors on their social media accounts asking you politely to please pre-order their books, they're not just doing it. It's not a vanity thing. It's not a look at me. It's a please. This is business now. You need to let my publishers know that this book is in demand. Okay. Oh, Shane McGinley has a question. When you get developmental edits on a novel, how do you handle it? Have you ever really disagreed with the notes? What did you do? So this is a thing as well. I wish I knew. I'm going to answer your question, Shane. Thank you very much for the question. I wish I knew before, I wish I knew before I wrote my first book what developmental edits meant, what line editing meant, what copy editing meant. I did not know. And it sounds ridiculous to say it now, where I'm, 4 books, 5, well, my 5th book now. So 5th book in my traditionally published. I wish I'd known that. It seems ridiculous to be saying it now, but I did not understand the difference. Well, not even I didn't understand the difference. I didn't know what a line edit was. So the developmental edit is basically, that's the big edit. That's the edit where my edit is addressing plot, structure, characters, setting, what works, what doesn't work. She tells me what should be taken out if the timeline's not working. The first time I got my first set of developmental edits, I was like, what the? There's a lot. Because now you want me to do a lot of work on this book. So the first time, so I'm just scrolling through the questions. The first time now when I get my developmental edits, because I'm now 5 books in, I think I can always kind of like preempt what my editor's possibly going to suggest. So when I get my edits back from my editor, I get 2 things. Actually, I get 3 things. I get my letter, so I get an editor's letter, and then I get the developmental editing notes I get. And the letter will be basically saying what works, what doesn't work, what we need to work on, what she loves about it. And then developmental editing notes is going for it bit by bit by bit. And she breaks it down. So it'll be the first bit will be dealing with plot, if we're going to work on plot and character, maybe, and structure. She'll break it down into different parts. So what I do is, because, I like to physically handle things. So I print out the physical copy of my book. I can't work on the screen. My brain doesn't work that way. So I print out the full manuscript and I color code my developmental edits. So for example, plot will be green. Setting will be yellow. Character will be pink. And I go through it. I address each and every single one of the points that my editor's made. And then the third thing she will send me will be comments on the actual manuscript. So that's how I deal with it on a practical level. So I very much emotionally detach myself from it. But in terms of have I ever disagreed with the notes, I haven't disagreed because you can get caught up in your feelings. Like with the last book, sorry, something going on in my house. In the last book I wrote, that's coming out in February, there was this scene. And I was in love with this scene. I loved this scene. And it was one of the first scenes I thought of when I started writing the book. I'm like, it's going to go in this book. It's going to go in the shadow cover. And my editor said from the very first developmental edits, it needs to come out. And I was like, nope, it's not coming out. And I kept it in. We did 2 developmental edits, came back, it needs to come out. I was like, nope, it's not coming out. And it wasn't like I fundamental disagreed with it. It was just an emotional attachment to this scene. And when it got to the line edits, I'm like, no, she's right. It needs to come out. But there have been times when I have disagreed and I've just said, no, I don't think that will work for this character. And I've written it in the comments like, no, I'm keeping this because I think it works for X, Y, and Z reason. If I'm keeping something, I always justify it. But they've been quite minor things. They haven't been great, big, fundamental things that would significantly change like the story or a chapter or a character. But I feel it all comes down to, I think, how comfortable you are with your editor. So I feel comfortable enough with my editor, and I've been very, very lucky to have had the same editor from book 1 to now. So I have my same editor. So I feel very comfortable in saying to my editor, X, Y, Z, I agree with you, or no, I don't agree with this point. Like there was a time when my editor WhatsApped me randomly And she said, I think we should, I'm not going to tell you, could it be like a spoiler for a future book? And she's like, I think we should do X to this character. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. So, yeah. So, again, it depends on how comfortable you are. But I think when you're doing your edits, I think you need to take emotion out of it because you've spent a very long time with this book. You spent a very long time with these characters. This is your story. I understand that. But you want to put your book in the best position it can be so that it can sell. So take emotions out of it and listen to read the notes objectively. But if there's something you fundamentally disagree with, don't be afraid to say no. And if you can justify it, like explain why taking it out or changing it would significantly affect the story, then that will always go in your benefit, in your favour. Okay, Emily said, hello, Emily. You said, you've already answered my earlier question, but if you have time today, how do you handle real life? How do you handle real life stories in your writing and avoid landing? That's a good question. Let me read it again because I interrupted myself. You've already answered my earlier question, but if you had time today, how do you handle real life stories in your writing and avoid landing in baby reindeer territory? I'm thinking of things you read about online. It's funny. This kind of ties into like, where do you get your ideas from? Like, how are you inspired? And, we're all inspired by things that go on around us. And I did a short video in it. It's on my YouTube channel, which is Nadine, Matheson author. But I did a quick video explaining like where I get my ideas from. Because one of the questions I'm always asked is, as a criminal lawyer, have I ever used any of my cases for plots in my book? And the best way I can explain it is that I'm like a magpie, and I think most writers are. So I've never lifted like allegation for allegation, witness statement for witness statement. I've never I've never lifted an entire case and transported it to a book and created a book around a case. So the Jigsaw Man, I've never represented a serial killer in my life. Never. Never. I would have liked to, but I never have. So that book is not inspired by a case that I worked on. But there are certain aspects of that case, I keep saying it now, there are certain aspects of the book, The Jigsaw Man, that was inspired by elements of different cases that I worked on. So it's like a compilation of cases. So I said in the video, in A Jigsaw Man, there's a scene where Henley goes to a witness's house, and she goes to the house, and Henley's the detective in my series, and she goes to the house. When she gets in the house, she's like, something's not right. Something's not right. Something is not right about this house. She can't put her finger on it. And that scene was inspired by, I was sent as a lawyer. I think I was only 2 years qualified. Anyway, I had this client charged with fraud, and he wouldn't talk. Said he was mute. Well, he didn't say he was mute, but his partner said he's mute. He can't talk. Refused to talk. I couldn't get. Most I'd get is like a nod. He would not talk. It's one of my favourite cases though. So he would not talk. Anyway, fast forward. My boss says I need to go to his house to get him to sign some papers because he wasn't signing documents, and we need to get this. I need documents signed so I can continue to represent him. I didn't want to go, but I went. I went to the house. It wasn't a house; it was a flat. I got into the flat. They let me in, and this event inspired two scenes: one in the Jigsaw Man and one in the binding room. And I got into the flat, and I stood in the hallway, and it smelled stale. And I was like, this place, it smells weird. Not weird like it's not clean. It just didn't smell. The best way I can explain it, it didn't smell lived in. It didn't smell lived in. It smelled musty. The best way I could describe it was like if you've got really old clothes that have been sitting in a bag and you're about to send them to the charity shop. It's the only way I can explain it. It didn't smell lived in. Turns out, because later on as this case progresses, remember my client's being charged with fraud. It wasn't their house. It wasn't their flat. They was renting it. It was like a front. Their real flat, their real house was this £2 million house in Kensington. But that scene stuck with me. It stuck with me. And it inspired that scene in The Jigsaw Man. And yeah, there's something else I was going to say, but I don't think I can say it without breaking privilege. So I won't. But I think that's the best, but I think that's how you handle real life stories in your writing and avoid landing in baby reindeer territory. So you can be inspired by things around you, because there's so many TV shows and stuff where it will say, inspired by such and such events, or when they do reenactments, they'll say, they've taken dramatic license with it. But I think, I don't know how you get around it other than asking for permission, but how many people want to give you permission to talk about their lives? But I mean, that's how I handle real life stories, because I'm inspired by things that go on around me. I'm inspired by cases. I'm inspired by, like in The Binding Room, one of the characters, Serena, she was inspired by a client I had who was charged with arson, who was just, you just wouldn't like her. Actually, she was inspired by two people. One client charged with arson and another client charged with grievous bodily harm with intent. And they were not likable people. They were not innocent, but not likable at all. They had no redeeming qualities. So, those features of their personality inspired my character. So I think hopefully that's answered your question, Emily. There's another question. Marcia said, "Oh, loving the info and pre-orders. I too had no idea how important they were. Pre-orders are important. They are very, very important." I'm gonna get off shortly, but if there's any more questions, I know I had one more. Oh, this follows on from what I was talking about earlier. So in my first Substack live this afternoon, I was talking about comparison. And someone asked, how do you keep writing when comparison or self-doubt creeps in, especially when everyone else seems to be winning? Well, you can go back to my Substack article about my latest one where I spoke about comparison. But it's hard. It's very, 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 very hard to keep writing when you're comparing yourself to other people and when self-doubt creeps in. Because I was saying earlier that because I'm writing something completely different, I'm not writing my Angelica Henley series, I'm writing a standalone. The self-doubt creeps in because I'm like, oh my God, I'm writing something completely new. These are new characters. This is a new story. I'm having to familiarize myself with this world. I'm having to get used to a new way of writing. And then I'm questioning, oh my God, like, can I do this? Even though I've written 50,000 words, I'm still asking myself, can I do this? Even though I've written, I can't even think now, five published books. I've got 5 published books out there, short stories out there in anthologies. Even though I've done all of these things, every time you sit down to write a new book, it feels like you're doing it for the very, very first time. And the thing of this world we live in, other people's successes and achievements, that's the only way I can pull it without, I know it sounds abrupt and coarse, but other people's achievements are always being put in your face, whether it's because you're on social media and you're scrolling through Instagram and you're seeing someone celebrating the fact that they've got their latest deal, or they got in the bestsellers chart, or you subscribe to, I mentioned earlier, you subscribe to the Bookseller or Publishers Weekly. I can't think what the other one is. So you subscribe to these magazines, and you're constantly, because you're subscribed, you then get the daily emails saying, these are such and such got a deal, such and such made X, Y, and Z. This person went straight into the charts after selling 45,000 copies, because then you realise they're in a subscription box. So you can't help but compare yourself. And then if you've been published at the same, we all have a cohort. So when I was first published in 2021, there's a group of authors that I was self-published with. We all had books come out around the same time as debuts. And if someone's doing brilliantly, of course you're going to be looking, you're human. So of course you'll be looking at them thinking, oh my God, like they're doing X, Y, and Z and they've got US deals and now they've been picked up by Netflix. I mean, if Netflix are listening, I have a book ready for you to adapt. So call me, call my agent, call my agent. But what I'm saying is it's natural for comparison and self-doubt to sink in. It's just, you want to be human. But the only way, my advice is you have to focus on what you have to do. You have to focus on your book. It's like, you walk your own race. Don't look at your neighbor. You can be inspired by people. I think it's a difference. You can be inspired by people and be like, oh my God, I love what they've done. I would love to achieve what they've achieved. That's one thing. But if you find that's affecting you emotionally and it's potentially stopping you working on your own book, you just have to ignore it. Try and ignore it and just focus on writing the best story that you can write. Have confidence, especially if you've got an agent, you've got a publishing deal, or, even if you're doing it yourself, you're self-published and you've got good traction, you've done it before, you can do it again. And people want you. People want your work. They want to read what you've written and stuff. So don't get me wrong, it's not easy. Especially when you're having a bad day and you can't make, like, the story's not coming together, the characters aren't doing the things you want to do. Like, the book I'm writing now, there's a scene, when I told you my main character, has been standing outside on this street, she's standing outside an estate, and she's been standing outside this estate in the snow. I've had her there for what feels like a week now because I cannot get this character to move. I keep writing stuff, deleting it. I brought someone else into the scene to try and get some traction out of it. I went back and left the scene and wrote something else and came back to it. When you're having moments like that, when you're having days like that, it's hard not to compare yourself to someone else, but it's all part and parcel of being a writer. I'm going to make her move in the new year because I know what I'm doing with her now because I had a break from it. But yeah, so I think those are all the questions I had that were sent to me that I wanted to answer. If there are any more questions, I don't think there are, from all of you who joined. I hope I answered your questions, those who put it in the message box. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wish I knew before I wrote my first book. I said the importance of pre-orders. Pre-orders I wish I knew. I wish I knew exactly what development... Oh, Emily, you're welcome. I wish I knew the difference between developmental edits, copy edits, and line editing sooner. I wish someone had sat down with me prior to, in the beginning, sat down with me and explain what everyone's role is within publishing. And it seems like really simplistic things to say you wish you knew, but I think any author, whether your debut or you've had a couple of books out, I think everyone would benefit from knowing this is everyone's role in publishing. This is specifically what marketing will do. This is what the publicity team will do. This is what your editing team will do. This is how much your market... I think this is important as well. I think publishers should explain to you exactly what... You need to know what to expect. So I think they need to explain to you exactly how much your marketing budget is. I.e., we're only going to give you $1,000. The same, for example. We're only going to give you $1,000 because your deal did... So I'm trying to look at the messages. The advance we gave you was for only... I'm just picking a number out of the sky. We only gave you a £10,000 advance, which means your marketing budget's only going to be £800. I'm just picking random numbers. So for £800, you're going to get X, Y, and Z. I think managing authors' expectations in the very beginning would get rid of a lot of problems. So, I think if you're a new author, I think all authors would benefit from knowing this is exactly the amount of money we're allocating in terms of marketing, and this is exactly what you're going to get for your £1,000 budget, or Sorry, my cat is doing strange things. You can't see her. She's looking at me strangely. Yeah, so you'll get £1,000, and this is what £1,000 will give you. But if we're going to give you £10,000, this is what £10,000 give you. And if you're in Richard Osman categories and you get 100 grand, I'm just saying, you get 100 grand marketing budget. This is what you're going to get for a marketing budget. In other words, you're not going to be on the side of a bus with an 800 quid budget. However, there's also nothing stopping you from marketing your books yourself and in not instructing, what's the word? Well, working with independent marketing agencies and PR agencies. I know plenty of authors who've done that. If you listen to my podcast, I've done a couple of reload episodes for leading up to the end of the year, and there's a conversation I had with the author Mike Craven, and he was explaining, because I can't remember what book it was that came out, but he had a massive billboard in Cumbria, massive billboard. And he was basically explaining that, I think he said he paid for his billboard. And I know a couple of authors who have paid for their billboards. But he says when it comes to marketing the book and doing publicity, he works with his publishers, and they basically split up the areas of the country they're going to work in. So because he's from Cumbria, that area of England, he works and he knows the booksellers. He knows the booksellers, knows the journalists. He works on promoting his book in Cumbria, and he leaves the rest of the country to the publishers. So I think my piece of advice would be as well for all authors, especially new authors, work with your community. And when I say community, work with introduce yourself to the local bookshops. And I know it can be hard, especially if you're not an extrovert, especially if networking doesn't come naturally to you. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. But it's important to work with the people around you. So introduce yourself to the local bookshops. And I don't mean like the big, massive, like what's the word? I can't think what the word for it is. But, introduce like the Waterstones, and I was going to say W.H. Smith, but they're not W.H., whatever they're called now. But I mean like the small independent bookshops, make yourself known to them. Libraries are everyone's friends. Always support your local library, but work with the librarians, because libraries get a budget for events, and they're keen to put on events because they need, the more you support your libraries, the more you use the services, it ensures that they will survive. So libraries are always keen to work with especially local authors, and put on events. I've done so many library events. Libraries local to me, I mean, like I can walk there in 5 minutes. Local libraries in different boroughs. So get to know your librarians, find out who's in charge of doing events, work with them, see if they'll do an event with you. And when you do this, you'll then discover who the other local authors are, because it'll surprise you, there are a lot of local authors. Look at the small festivals around you. I guarantee you there's going to be someone putting on some kind of festival. I'm not talking about the big, massive ones, but the small ones. So I think like these are the things that you can do for yourselves as an author looking to, you'll want to sell books at the end of the day. So introduce yourself to the libraries, to the booksellers, to the local papers. I know it's hard because print journalism seems to be disappearing, but the local newspapers still exist, even if they've gone online. So introduce yourself to them, drop them an email, let them know you're a local author and you've got a book coming out. My books are set in Southeast London. They're set where I live. If you look at my social media, when I show how I was inspired by a book, a lot of the time scenes are inspired by places I go to, where I walk regularly, and I will post it. I'll share it online. And have I done anything? I've done something like, I can't remember what it was now, but I've done something locally. I think it was like a long online magazine and talking about the area that inspired you. So I think that's my advice. Okay, I don't think I've got anything else to tell you. I think I just wanted to pop on and just answer some questions that were sent to me after I did my last live. So, unless anyone else has questions, anything they want to ask me, if you don't, it's 4:26. I will switch off at 4:30. It's Christmas. I'm not planning. This is the thing. I am not planning to write a thing over Christmas. I need to give my brain a break. But that's not to say I'm not jotting down ideas. Because the weird thing is, when you walk away from your desk and you walk away from your work, sometimes when and then you've given yourself space, that's when the answers come to you in terms of where your character needs to go next. Maybe finally I might get my character off the snow covered street and doing something. So what I'm doing now, I'm utilizing my apps on my phone. So I'm utilizing the notes app. I dictate more. Does anyone do this? So I'm going to switch off at 4:30. But does anyone dictate? I never used to. I only ever used to dictate years and years and years and years ago when I was a trainee solicitor. Um, and the firm I trained with, we still had to dictate our attendance notes and stuff, and then we'll give it to the secretary and they'll type it up. So I did used to dictate. This is like 20 years ago, though. God, more than that. Oh, I've been a lawyer for a long time. Yes, I used to. But what I've started doing now, I said, is utilizing the notes app on my phone and the voice memo app. So sometimes when I'm working through an idea in my head, or I'm working through pieces of dialogue, especially, or I'm working through a scene, and sometimes it's not like writing, it's not speaking out the text. Does that make sense? It's not me speaking out the prose and the dialogue, but it's me saying, okay, maybe what would happen if X character did Y and Z, and maybe this happens in the next scene. So what I found that I dictate more. And because I'm talking it through, the answer then comes to me as I'm talking it through. So that is one thing I would advise. If you're finding it difficult, if you're working for a scene, dictate, like just talk it through in a voice memo app on your phone. And then when you're doing it, you will then see the answer might come to you. And then you can extrapolate what you need to from the from the dictated note. I can't speak. From the dictated note. So that's what I do. I got 2 minutes. What else do I do? I spoke in my last live. I spoke about how I use Scrivener. Still use Scrivener. Still use Word. Oh, timelines. Timelines are the bane of my life. When I'm writing books, I keep saying I'm going to keep this timeline in order so I don't finish it and have to sort it all out at the end. But timelines are the bane of my life. Even this book I'm writing now, I've already screwed up the timeline. What I have, and this was recommended to me by another author. Oh God, who was it? Tim McKinsey. He recommended it to me, and he writes cozy crime. It's really good. Let me get it right. It's a software program called, is it Aeon? Aeon, and it's just for timeline. But what it does also, which I didn't realize it did, so it's Aeon, and I'll put it in my Substack notes. I'll do a quick post about the things I use. Oh, the cat's done something again. Yeah, so Aeon, timeline software, and you can put out your entire book in terms of time. It will construct a whole timeline for you. You can move things around. You can have it in whatever format works for you visually. And then what it also does as well, which I only discovered, and because I'm very much a planner and I'm very much a strong believer of the 3-act structure, that's how I plan my books: Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, my inciting incidents, the climax, the midpoint. I follow it through and through. But Aeon, it does that for you as well. So you can use it both for, who is that? I don't know. So you could do it both for planning your books, but also working through your timeline. So that is my recommendation for you. If timelines are the bane of your life, that is a good software program to have to help you write your book and plan your books. Okay, I am now done. It's 4:30. It's Friday. I'm going to get a drink. Merry Christmas to you all. I will see you all in 2026. Thank you for joining me again. Those who were here from the earlier live at 2:30 and you've come back, Thank you for coming back. I'm sorry that earlier live recording won't be available because the sound was all messy, but hopefully this one's okay. All right. Thank you. Bye.